Handheld emulators had some arc over the past few years. There were a lot of them, and I mean a lot of them. It's become a meme that these retro handheld manufacturers just dump out releases month after month. Some manufacturers, namely Anbernic, were known for releasing almost the perfect handheld. If only it had just that one little thing. And then 1 month later, they would release that same handheld with that one more thing, like a thumbstick. Then it would be missing something else. Ever dangling that hot dog right in front of us, and we're all just chasing it. It's just never gonna happen. It's never gonna be perfect. This got really old really fast when early last year they just had so much garbage. Well, last year, Anbernic also released this, the RG35XX-SP. It looks great, it's compact, the screen is protected, it plays everything up to Dreamcast very well. It's pretty much the perfect retro handheld. After that, nothing Anbernic released interested me at all. A lot of their devices are kind of just the same chipset in different form factors, and none of those really interested me because this 35XX-SP is kind of all that I needed. Well, this year they released the 34XX-SP, mostly the same device. The whole thing is slightly smaller with a slightly shorter screen, but this time it's got thumbsticks.
Wow.
I didn't even think I really needed thumbsticks all that badly, but I did play some 3D games on my original 35SP, and I did find myself wishing I had thumbsticks for games like Sonic Adventure 2 or even like Mario 64. So I ended up buying this for myself. I haven't gotten a chance to play with it yet because SteamOS released, the Lenovo Legion Go S, the Nintendo Switch 2. It's been a busy month, okay? This isn't all that Anbernic's been up to, though. They also released this, an emulation handheld that looks like a T-Mobile Sidekick or a PSP Go, depending on which millennial you ask. This is a lot more powerful and a lot more expensive. It runs on Android and can play up to GameCube and PS2 and some light Nintendo Switch emulation. But this is interesting because it's a form factor that I've never seen in an emulation handheld. And it's just, oh, so satisfying to slide up. Finally, a new form factor. It's been nice to jump back into the Anbernic cesspool again. One of these devices I ended up being very interested in, and one of these devices I ended up being a little bit disappointed in. Try to guess which one while I tell you about this video's sponsor, Ugreen. This video is sponsored by Ugreen. Oh, not again. Hey. Hey. Hey! Why? Is that your MacBook dying? Yeah. Oh, no. Hey, you want to borrow some juice? I always bring this backup battery with me. Whoa! They let you in here with that? Shh! If it fits in the box, it can go on the plane. That's the rule. You know what? You just reminded me I got one of my own right here. The Ugreen Nexode 165-watt retractable battery power bank can deliver 100 watts of power to a single USB-C device or a total of 165 watts via dual ports. 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port. It can charge a 14-inch MacBook from 0 to 54% in just 30 minutes. No need to bring a cable with you. It's got a retractable one built in, up to 2.1 feet. Nah, don't trust it. I don't trust any cables. You don't have to untangle yourself. You want to borrow one? With a massive 20,000 milliamp hour capacity, this bad boy can charge your iPhone 16 up to 3.8 times. Check out Ugreen's Prime Day deals at the link in the description below and get up to 40% off. Well, that was fast. Hey, buddy, in your little bag there, do you have a USB-C to 1993 Dodge Charger cigarette lighter adapter that I can borrow? I'm renting a car in Istanbul. Listen, I'm sorry we're talking over you. You don't know her? Why are you sitting so close to her? I was here first! I'm gonna start with the 34XX-SP. Contrary to what it sounds like, the 34XX is actually newer than the 35XX. God, they're terrible with names. They're mostly the same with some minor differences, and I'm going to focus mostly on the differences because I have a video on the 35XX-SP already, and you can just watch that if you're interested in the details. Given all of the differences, I think I might actually like the older 35XX-SP more. These two run on the same chip, so they should be able to play all the same systems. Game Boy all the way up to DS and N64 and Dreamcast. And it plays them all very well. The size is a little closer to the original Game Boy Advance SP. That I like. The 3.5XX SP is slightly larger, less authentic. The biggest difference, though, are the thumbsticks. This is a great feature to have. Why not opt for the one with the thumbsticks, you might be saying to yourself? Well, it's because the thumbsticks are largely useless. They're way too low on the device to be comfortable. The balance is all off. Some games that require dual thumbsticks, like, say, Perfect Dark, for example, they also have you pressing the shoulder buttons, usually. That makes gripping the device feel even worse. This isn't a deal breaker in itself. Having the option to use the thumbsticks, even if they're uncomfortable, is still a plus. It's the accuracy of the thumbsticks that is the deal breaker. Anbernic has had an issue with their Linux-based handhelds for so long, and they've never fixed it. The thumbsticks just are never calibrated right. This is something that you can fix with custom firmware. You can slap MinUI on here pretty easily. But why should you have to do that? Anbernic can't fix their own devices with their own firmware? It's been like this for over a year now. Using this thumbstick tester ROM that I have for N64, we can see that the thumbstick just snaps to the cardinal directions. There's no nuance to it at all. It's almost exactly like just using a D-pad. What's the difference here? It makes controlling games with the thumbstick feel way worse than it should. Games like Mario 64 that need precision movement just don't work right. This is not the upgrade over the D-pad version of the SP that we were hoping for. And still, this isn't enough for me to not like this newer version over the older version, because it's just an added feature that you don't have to use if you don't want to. The thing that might be a little bit of a deal breaker for me is this screen. We now have a 3.5-inch screen. It's slightly shorter. This is to make it look more like an original Game Boy Advance screen. It's the same exact 3:2 aspect ratio, and the resolution is a perfect 3x scale from the original Game Boy Advance resolution. Whereas the older 3.5-inch screen has some extra room when scaling Game Boy Advance games. Well, normally, I'm cool with pixel perfect scaling. I liked it on the 3.4XX, the horizontal one, but I kind of like the extra room. By default, the 3.5XX SP puts this Game Boy Advance bezel that makes it look a lot more like a Game Boy Advance SP. It's kind of really stupid, but I kind of really miss that bezel. I think it looked sick. I like the way that looks better. And the scaling was fine. That screen was also 4:3, which worked way better for every other system out there, besides Game Boy Advance. For the 3.4XX SP, I found myself changing the video settings for every system. I went into RetroArch's video settings, switched to a core-provided aspect ratio, and sometimes integer scaling, depending on the vibe. I did this for pretty much every system. I kind of remember the 3.5XX SP being mostly set up the way that I like out of the box. Besides this, the 3.4XX SP plays games mostly the same, which is to say that the emulation quality is pretty fantastic on both of these devices. I'm just a little disappointed in some of the changes. You'd think adding features would make it better, but they ended up being kind of useless changes. The screen's also 120 Hz now, which is theoretically great for adding CRT filters using black frame insertion. I have a video on that as well. I never got it to work great on this screen. We'll shift gears to the next device Anbernic released that I was interested in anyway. The RG Slide, which is the complete opposite situation. I was not expecting to like this thing at all, and then I started using it, and I was pleasantly surprised. I went into this thinking it was a stupid gimmick, and now I kind of really like it. Listen to that. Ooh. It's got the same chipset as the RG Cube, which I already made a video on, and I already really like. So it's like the same thing with a 4:3 screen. But now it can slide. I really wasn't even considering getting one. This actually isn't mine. I'm borrowing this from a friend. Thank you very much. I was going to get one from keepretro.com, and then they denied me. I think because this is too expensive and nobody wants to buy it. So they didn't want to spend the money sending me one. I understand. It's just, it's a little funny. It's like way bigger than I think anyone was expecting. It's not exactly pocketable. Not that you would want to put it in your pocket, not without something to protect the screen, since it is not a clamshell. It is a slide. The slide is a bit loud. It scared my dog at least once, but man, is it satisfying. The first thing I did was turn off the lock screen. So when I slide it up, it just turns itself right on, making it even more satisfying to slide. The screen is very nice. Anbernic screens are usually very nice. 4:3 is a great aspect ratio for retro games, up to and including GameCube and PlayStation 2. But there is a lot of room on this top part. They could have easily pushed this screen a little bigger, maybe made it 3:2 or something. This screen is so nice and big, even for Game Boy Advance games. Look at this. On the plus side, there is room for stereo speakers, and they do sound great. I'm assuming they went with 4:3 because it was easier to source that screen, but it would have been nice to have a weirder aspect ratio screen. This runs Android, and Anbernic does a pretty good job of providing you with emulation apps already, and they have a pretty decent front end for Android. Accessing it is just a little weird. You have to swipe down from the top and click this little button to activate it. I brought my own SD card with my own games that I want to test, and I couldn't figure out how to get those to show up in Anbernic's launcher without moving the folders around. Be care. So I just opened each emulation app individually, which you will want to do before you use any launcher with Android. Each emulator is going to run a first-time configuration, so open them all up one at a time. I also set up Emulation Station as a launcher, which is also extremely easy to do. It is Android after all, so you have a ton of launcher options. As for the ergonomics, it is surprisingly comfortable. It's a little heavy. The weight isn't exactly evenly distributed, but reaching for the controls feels totally fine, even if all the components are laid out in a weird horizontal line. Playing a game like Perfect Dark with both thumbsticks feels pretty good. Reaching for the shoulder buttons does feel a little weird, but it's not a deal breaker. It's totally fine. And that D-pad is pretty stellar. It's the big, thick Anbernic D-pad that I like. This device is pretty beefy. It can handle all the way up to GameCube, PlayStation 2, Vita, and some light Switch emulation. Because of its beefiness, it has some different CPU modes, which are also accessible from the Android drop-down menu. I leave this on high and the fan speed set to auto. The fan is very quiet. I actually didn't even think it was working at first, so I switched it to high speed, and it still barely made a sound. It's a powerful handheld, but it's not the most powerful. It plays PS2 games pretty decently, but there is some slowdown. I'm sure you could tweak some settings. Don't expect full speed burnout on here. It's definitely playable though. The same goes for GameCube. There are two GameCube emulators on here, Dolphin MMJR2 and regular old Dolphin. MMJR2 has some graphical glitches, but it's overall pretty stable in terms of frame rate. Regular Dolphin has some frame dips, so I guess play with both and see which one works best for you. Again, I would say GameCube is playable. Vita runs great on here. The gyro actually works really well. I didn't have any hiccups or stutters or anything. And this thing looks an awful lot like a PSP Go, so playing Vita games on here feels weirdly at home. It kind of reminds me of the Odin 2 Mini, which was phenomenal for Vita emulation. 3DS, on the other hand, looks really weird on this quirky little guy, but it weirdly works if you want to mostly just use the top screen. This 4:3 screen is big enough to accommodate a sizable top screen for 3DS emulation, and just a little glimpse of the bottom screen that can easily swap back and forth by just pressing the right stick in. It plays 3DS pretty well. I don't know why Mario was silhouetted while I was playing. This became a problem on the second level when the background was mostly black, but the game only stuttered a little, so gameplay isn't terrible. Pokemon Sun was also playable with minor stutters. I would say 3DS emulation is just fine on here, so long as you don't mind the tiny bottom screen. I sure don't. I think one screen at a time is fine. So far, all of the emulators that I've used on here have come pre-installed. I brought my own games, and you might have to bring your own BIOS files for like PS2 and Vita, but Mostly this thing comes set up right out of the box. I did install Yuzu on here though for some Nintendo Switch emulation. Don't expect any heavy 3D games on here. Retro-styled Switch games like Sonic Mania should be totally fine. You can see that Mario Wonder is a little bit slow. I'm not sure if any amount of tweaking could fix that, but maybe it could. And Mario Odyssey is extremely slow. Don't expect to get much mileage out of Switch emulation outside of smaller titles. But it's still cool that it's at least an option. I was a bit surprised by how much I like the RG slide. I think I mostly just like sliding it. That mechanism feels so good. And it's a solid mechanism. I don't see this getting shitty anytime soon. Probably do this for a long while. My biggest gripe is the price. $190 is like fine, but it's not that competitive in terms of GameCube and PS2 emulation. The Retroid Pocket 4 is currently $150 right now. I would sooner recommend that as an Android emulator that can do up to PS2 and GameCube. And if you'd be willing to spend a little more money, I'd recommend the Retroid Pocket 5 way more. It's probably the best at the price point. The emulation quality on that is just stellar. The saving grace for the RG slide is that it's just so satisfying to fidget with. But also, it just works right out of the box with minimal setup. Maybe the most minimal out of any Android-based retro handheld. You just have to click that launcher button from the drop-down to get the games in a user-friendly way. So if you buy this for somebody, tell them to do that. I like this version of Anbernic, the Anbernic that's trying new things and releasing things that are unique, not just putting the same chipset in different form factors that we've already seen before. We're kind of running out of form factors for retro handhelds to be in. We've kind of seen everything already. The only form factors I think we have left are like a dual screen DS or 3DS style form factor for Anbernic. I would also personally be interested in an XX style device that's just slightly more powerful, something that's just this small, but can play a little more, maybe some light GameCube games. I think that might be worth taking a look at. That would be extremely difficult to accomplish, though, putting all of that power in such a small form factor and nailing that price point. In the meantime, if they're going to just keep releasing the same boring versions in clamshell or horizontal or vertical form factor, but this time it's got a thumbstick with a slightly different screen or blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'll check back on Anbernic when they do more cool shit. But I'm going to try not to check back on every single new release, you know? I'll wait for something interesting. What do you guys think about what Anbernic's been up to lately? We got the 3.4XXSP, we got the slide. What do you think I left out? What do you think I should try? What do you think will make me more interested in the 3.4XXSP? I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of shit for not liking this as much. Look, I see the value in the perfect scaling of the screen for GBA games, but this thing can do a lot more than just GBA games. And we had something for GBA already, and it was just fine. I was totally cool playing GBA games on here. Leave it in the comments below, add me on Twitter, any and all this other social media garbage. Check out twitch.tv/WulffDen, where I stream pretty frequently, and you can talk to me and chat about all of this stuff. You can yell at me there. Most important thing you can do to help support this channel is subscribe and share this video with a friend who's thinking about getting one of these things. Also, thank you, Yuki. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Have a good week.